Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan, and a common comment I get on my videos is, how come you haven't got Salah in your team? How come you haven't got Kane in your team? Why haven't you got everyone? And the popular response is, well, you can't have everyone. But today, we're going to try and give you guys what you want and try and see if the phrase, you can't have everyone, is true or not, because we're going to be building a team with Haaland, Kane, and Salah in all in one. It's actually a decent team. Wait till the end. You guys are going to enjoy this one. If you do, drop a like, subscribe. Let's have a look at this team. So, of course, with 3 premium players, you just know that we have spent all of our money, basically, and we're going to have to cut some corners in some other areas. But first of all, let's put the 3 big men themselves on the pitch. Salah, Erling Haaland, and Harry Kane. They are on there, ready to go. We already know we're going to start off with these 3 players, and we're going to see if we can build a competent team around them, which is, in a way, kind of difficult, but I'm going to try and show you how it can be done actually pretty effectively. So, we've got our 3 players. Obviously, all 3 of them are going to score you a lot of points. They're going to be very consistently high scoring players. We're expecting 20 goals from each of these players, kind of as an absolute minimum, possibly even more. All 3 of them on penalties as well, so you've got 3 penalty takers, and you're just going to get points galore from these guys. And what we really need to find out is, with the cheap prices that FPL has offered us this year, can we build a team around them that will complement them and supplement them very well? Because with these 3 guys, we are always going to have an insane captaincy option every single game week. So we don't need captain options, we just need players that can score well. So let's try and do that, starting off in goal with Johnston. So we're going to start off in goal with Johnston around this team, because I feel like we can go for a cheap player in goal. 4.5 million goalkeepers are nothing new. 4.5 million goalkeepers, often the highest scoring players in FPL. We saw it last season with David Raya. He was only 4.5 at the beginning of the season because he plays for a team that basically doesn't score too many goals, doesn't concede too many goals, gets plenty of saves, and that often equals bonus points as well. So what I'm looking for in my 4.5 million goalkeeper is a player who plays for a team that doesn't score too many goals but doesn't concede too many either. Crystal Palace checks that box. A player who's going to get 3 saves per game on average. Johnston kind of works out slightly below that. I think it's something like 2.9 saves on average per game last season, but that's good enough for me. And he averages a bonus point every other game as well as of last season, which actually makes him statistically the best 4.5 million goalkeeper in the entire game right now, and a player who is being massively overlooked. Those of you guys who watched yesterday's video will know more about this one because I explained it in more detail, but 1.1% ownership for the best 4.5 goalkeeper in the game, in my personal opinion, is absolutely nuts. But we can use this guy as a bit of a cheat code in this team to get a cheap goalkeeper who will actually score you a really decent amount of points. So he is going to be our starting point there, and a really easy way to cheap out in the rest of this team. In defense, I do want to go for Gabriel, and I feel like you could go for maybe a different 5 million defender here. You could go for Pervis Estupiñán, but I'm gone for Gabriel because I want a player I can basically stick with for a long period of time. Arsenal's defense with Saliba back in there and with Rice now in the central defensive midfield position, they're going to be much better defensively and kind of maybe echo the defensive numbers we saw at the beginning of last season, which were absolutely insane. We've got some really nice fixtures, but what I like about this the most, like I say, is we can just stick with Gabriel for a long time. We don't need to worry about transferring him out later down the line, so it's just that consistent performer, getting you the 6 points for the clean sheets, also the best kind of attacking threat from those set pieces. And when you look at Forest, Crystal Palace, Fulham, these are 3 teams that actually concede a lot of chances from headers from those corners. So actually, Gabriel, if he scored a goal in the opening 3 fixtures, I would not be surprised at all. So that could be really, really nice indeed. We're going to go up next with Pau Torres. So we do need to go for some 4.5 million defenders. I do feel like defense and in goal are the places to try and cheap out a little bit here, because often with the more defensive players, they're not super high scoring players a lot of the time. So therefore, we want to spend more of our money on those players who are going to be, you know, really racking up our points totals. With our defenders, we're really just looking for players who can keep the odd clean sheet. So we've gone for a strong defense in Arsenal. We've gone for a decent defense with decent save potential in Johnston. We're going for Pau Torres next, playing for an Aston Villa team that I think are going to look really, really good this season. They're a team that I'm really rating to be one of the new kind of underdog stories of the new season, kind of like what we saw with Newcastle last year, because they're making some insane signings. They've got a good manager, and Pau Torres is the the real deal. Really, really top level defender. Really surprised he's even signed for Aston Villa, to be honest, but it happened. And we've got some decent-ish fixtures here. Newcastle could be okay, but Everton and Burnley after that is where I'm really looking for those clean sheet points. And we're going to finish off with another cheap defender in Chilwell. So another 4.5. I think there's a decent amount of 4.5 million defenders to go for. Now, Levi Chilwell is actually looking like he could be a new starting defender for Chelsea this season. He was on loan at Brighton last year, did insanely well, but due to a couple of injury situations at Chelsea at the moment, Chilwell's been playing in defence in pre-season and he's looked so good, and I feel like he could be the guy to actually fix Chelsea's defence. And Chilwell is so good that if he doesn't get assurances that he's going to play regularly at Chelsea this year, then he's probably going to get a move elsewhere anyway. So no matter whether he's at Chelsea or not by the end of the transfer window, I feel like he is going to be a guy who gets regular starts. And like I say, he is a really good player. After that Liverpool game, we got some insane fixtures for Chelsea. It's probably going to take us all the way up to our first wild card before we need to think about switching out Chilwell. As long as he plays pretty consistently, we are going to need some playing defenders on the bench just to cover him, though, just for those odd games where maybe he doesn't play. Now let's move into midfield next, and we have got Mo Salah, as we know, but we're going to put some more players next to him. And I'm going to start you off with Martinelli. And I know he's expensive at 8 million, but I think one thing that I wanted to make sure I did when building this team, and it's difficult to do it, but I want to have at least one 8 million slot. We know this year that the 8 million slot in midfield is so valuable. There are so many good players in that region, whether we go up to 8.5 with the likes of Fernandes and Saka, or we drop down to 7.5 with the likes of Foden and Maddison. I want to be able to make sure we have access to that slot. And in terms of 8 million players, I feel like Martinelli is up there and gives you a little bit of attacking cover for Arsenal, because we're not going to have Jesus because we've already got Haaland and Kane up front. We can't quite afford Saka and have a balanced team, but maybe there is a way of squeezing Saka in if you cut a corner elsewhere in this team. Potentially there are ways of doing that, but right now I have got Martinelli in this team. I think Saka could work as well in this team. I think Fernandes could work out pretty well, but I do want to make sure I've got an Arsenal attacker in this team as well. So Martinelli, in my opinion, the best goal scoring threat in that Arsenal team. I think he's going to get far more minutes than a lot of people will make him out to be. Arsenal fans will already know what I mean. He's a super key player for us, so in that sense he is going to be in this team. Next up, we can afford to go for one 6.5 million midfielder, and that is going to be Kaoru Mitoma. I feel like he is the template guy to go for at the moment, but you could also go for Brian and Mbumo if you wanted to, Solly March if you want to go a little bit different there, or maybe even Eberechi Eze as well. So lots of 6.5 million options to go for. I've gone for Kaoru Mitoma in this particular team because I know he's very popular anyway, so I thought we'd kind of shove him in there. But if you watched my video from a couple of days ago, you might see why I think that. I don't think Mitoma is essential. I think he's a good pick, but I don't think he's an essential pick. So you can go for him if you want. If you want to switch him out for someone else, that is absolutely fine too. And we're going to finish off this midfield with Enciso. So Enciso is very much a high risk, high reward 5.5 million midfielder. If it's me personally, I'm probably not going to go for him, but what I do appreciate with him is that if he does get regular playing time, he is going to score some wacky points. His kind of like expected points per 90 is absolutely insane. So I feel like he could be a real blessing a blessing if he does well and if he plays games. There are other options at this price point, but none I'm like massively enthusiastic about. You could go for Andreas Pereira at 5.5. You could boost them up to a Morgan Gibbs-White, though he does not have very good fixtures. Maybe there are some other options. Some people say McNeil you could go for, potentially. Not massively keen on that one. So we've got Enciso as the 5.5 for now. Again, I've gone for a popular pick here to try and really make a team that's going to work for you guys, a team that I think you guys are going to enjoy most of all. But for me personally, I don't think I would go for Enciso. I'm not 100% sure if I go for Kaoru Mitoma in either. So maybe you could do a little bit of switching about there. But yeah, let me know, guys, who is your favorite 5.5 million midfielder? I can't really pinpoint one that I love right now, but maybe you guys have some different answers for me and can help me out with this team a little bit and yeah, improve it, I guess, because it's a team game, I guess. Well, FPL isn't, but this is a team and it's also a game. Let's move on to our final position in the starting 11, and that's going to be Joanne Whistler. So Joanne Whistler is obviously a really nice cheap price at 6 million, and I feel like by going to a 3-4-3 formation, you can actually get a little bit more value for money, because if we were to go for a 3-5-2, we'd probably be looking at going for Brian and Boom Mbumo in midfield, but I feel like you can switch out Mbumo for Whistler. You're probably going to get a similar output for both of those players, so you may as well go for Whistler and go for the slightly cheaper option. Whistler's going to be playing as the central striker for Brentford and all the way until Tony returns in January, so that's pretty nice to see. And he's going to be probably the main goal threat alongside Mbumo, maybe second goal threat there. So Whistler, really, really good goal scoring player. He's done really well anytime he's been called upon for Brentford, so I'm really feeling like this could be a really nice differential pick. And to be fair, there are a few differential picks in here that I feel like are going under the radar a lot in terms of those best cheap players, because I don't think too many people are really going for cheap players. But if you're going to go for Salah, Haaland, Kane, you have to cheap out. You have to cut corners. You have to go for some cheaper players. And there are some real gems to be found if you do go kind of bin digging, really, bin diving in those cheap bargain buckets and try and find something really nice. There's actually some decent players there. Let's bring up the bench, guys. We've got Bentley at the moment there. I feel like there's a chance he starts for Wolves instead of Jose Sarr. We've also got Bulldog, who you could actually technically play instead of Chilwell or Pau Torres in the opening fixture. But I don't actually mind Aston Villa against Newcastle, and Liverpool versus Chelsea sounds tough, but the last 4 fixtures that they've played against each other have been 0-0, so going for a Chilwell is really not too bad at all. But yeah, Bulldogs against Palace, so if you're kind of hoping for a 0-0 draw there, then maybe you could get something out of that one with Bulldog instead. We've got Bayer, who I put third on the bench. He's going to be a regular starter for Burnley, also very cheap at 4 million. So you've got Bulldog and Bayer to come in and cover Chilwell whenever he doesn't play, so that works pretty well. And I've actually gone for Carney Chukwuemeka as well as my 4.5 million midfielder. Again, that's a flexible position. Some people would prefer to go for Marvelous Nakamba at Luton. He's just going to pick you up 2 points per game pretty much. But Chukwuemeka, I feel like at this moment, he may actually get some decent amount of starting time, a decent amount of starting minutes for Chelsea, because they don't really have too many midfield options. So he's been starting in pre-season. There's a chance he carries on starting. And Ndombele could potentially go there as well. Or if you just want a super safe player, then yeah, Nakamba, like I say. But what I've tried to do with Chukwuemeka, and some of these other defenders on the bench, to be fair, is try and find players that actually could end up being regular starters for you, because when you're so cheap elsewhere, you know, you've got the cheap players like Torres or Chilwell, you've got Enciso in there, maybe Whistler as well to a degree. You might find yourself wanting to actually tag those guys out for your bench options from time to time, and therefore Bulldog and Bayer can come in when they have a nice fixture. Chukwuemeka, if it looks like he's going to start or he starts playing regularly for Chelsea, then he's going to be able to actually get you decent points, unlike a Nakamba. So that could be pretty interesting there as well. So different ways of kind of going for different players, and it's kind of up to you. If you want to go safe, you want to go template, or you want to go, super risky and pick out some high ceiling players. And players like, I think players like Enciso is really high ceiling. I like Chilwell a lot. I think he can pick up some bonus points because he's a really good passer. But other players like Johnston, Pau, Torres, and Whistler, I think those, yes, they're cheap players, but I think they're actually pretty safe players as well. I think I'm pretty confident those players are going to do pretty well. So it's really only Chilwell and Enciso who you might be keen to rotate a little bit, and maybe you feel like they're a little bit too risky. But hey, there's definitely other options out there. You've just got to find them. So let's slap a captain's armband now, guys, on, we'll put it on Erling Haaland, and I'm going to put the vice captain on Mo Salah for now. I think that's pretty decent. I think that works pretty well. So yeah, that is going to be the Game Week 1 team with 3 premiums. That's pretty much as good as I can get it, for considering, you know, the budget constrictions that we do have, but maybe you guys can improve it somehow. I'm actually going to have a look and see what the Fantasy Football Hub AI tool thinks of this, because I have a suspicion it might not like it because it's not very balanced, but I want to see if there's any ways I can kind of improve it. Okay guys, so I've got this team loaded up now in the Hub AI tool to try and get a proper team rating on this bad boy. Of course guys, if you want to check this tool out for yourself, you can have a look for absolutely for free. I've left a link at the top of the description where you can get your team rated as well. And I want to see, this team is 85% rated, which for me is a little bit lower than a team that I'd be comfortable using, but I'd be always very, very curious to see what your team rating is kind of at right now. A lot of you guys have been saying you've been around at 85% currently anyway, so maybe this team is just as good in terms of those AI predicted points. I'm going to see if we can optimize this, because of course this tool also has an optimization tool where it kind of predicts points pretty well. So let's have a look at that. Okay, with the optimization, it's actually switched Bulldog and it's starting him instead of Chilwell. I don't think think the AI tool kind of fancies Chilwell at the moment. It doesn't think he's going to start for Chelsea, but we know things can change very quickly, particularly with those injuries and rotation and form and stuff like that. But in general, it likes most of these players. The kind of three players it's not so keen on in this starting 11 is Bulldog Powell and Enciso. So I'm going to go and have a look at the suggested transfers to see if it's got any suggestions for me. Okay, so no real surprise here. It kind of wants me to sell one of the premiums. It's suggesting actually to sell Salah and go for Estupinian, Rashford and Fernandes here as kind of the upgrades on Chilwell and Enciso. But we do need to tell this tool that we don't want to sell our premium. So I'm going to do that and see if we get some more kind of suggested transfers. Okay, so I have said don't sell on any of the 3 premium players, and I've also said don't sell Martinelli because I do feel like that 8 million midfield slot is very, very important. So I've done that, and it's kind of suggesting some new players for me. So we've got Pinnock here, we've got Henry here, so the Brentford defenders are kind of highly suggested here. And it's also suggesting going for McNeil instead of Enciso, which is kind of interesting because obviously McNeil, same price, but perhaps a little bit more nailed, so you're at least guaranteeing yourself some points there. So I think let's bring in one Brentford defender and bring in one McNeil for Enciso and see if that helps our team rating anymore. Okay, guys, I've now made those suggested transfers, and we've got this team rating to 91%, and that is actually kind of crazy that we've managed to get it this high. Like this, anything above 90%, I think is genuinely a decent, solid team that I would not be worrying too much about. So basically, guys, we have today made a genuine, legitimate team that can be used effectively, which has all 3 of the big premium players in the squad. That's absolutely insane that we've managed to do that. So yes, we did it with the help of the AI tool, and definitely, guys, like a lot of you guys often say, what would you change about this team? Well, a great way of just finding a quick answer to that without having to ask another human being is to just ask this computer. So like I say, make sure you go check it out. The link is at the top of the description, and I just thoroughly recommend it because it sometimes give you some information or some players that you would have never thought about on your own. But today it helped me build this ultimate 3 premium FPL team that people said it couldn't be done. Well, we did it today. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to tell me which players you would change in this team, as well as let me know what your team rating is. Can you beat the 91% of my premium team? I don't know if you even can do that, particularly not with 3 premiums in your own team. But let me know, guys. Aside from that, make sure you are liking, make sure you're subscribing if you want daily FPL content all the way to the Gameweek 1 deadline. And aside from that, thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.